Good morning, students. We were discussing about a lesson called 2 Deer. In the past couple of classes, we dwelt about how in a peaceful kingdom, suddenly the king was faced with a problem. Let us refresh our memory. There was a kingdom called Monaco. In that kingdom called Monaco, there was a small king. Even though he was a small king, he enjoyed all the luxury like any other big kingdom in the world. He had his ministers, he was running his day-to-day administration. He also had soldiers, generals, and also courtiers to look after him. And this country was situated on the borders of France and Italy and on the shores of Mediterranean Sea. One of the strange or peculiar aspect about this country was, it was a small country which consisted of hardly 7,000 people. And when that entire territory was divided among them, each individual will hardly get an acre of land. But still, it was considered as one of the kingdom. And there were hardly 60 soldiers in the army. And the king was deriving income from various sources. He derived income from taxes which were levied on wine and spirit, tobacco, as well as a particular kind of tax called poll tax. But the income which was generated out of these taxes was not sufficient for the king to look after himself and his kingdom. So he came out with the idea of generating income from a new source of tax, and it came from a gaming house where people played a game called roulette. And this game was abolished in entire Europe because it brought enough harm to the people. But the king of Monaco enjoyed monopoly because he was getting enough income out of this gaming house. The German rulers were forced by their citizens not to go on with these gaming houses because so many people lost their money as well as life after gambling there. But the king of Monaco enjoyed monopoly. There was nobody to question him. And the king of Monaco already knew that the income which was generated out of these taxes is like a dirty business because it brought so much harm to the people. But he did not have any other alternative source of revenue. So he went on with this income. So everything was running on peacefully. The king enjoyed all the luxuries. He had a coronation, he sentenced people, he showed mercy. Everything went on like any other king, but only on a smaller scale. But suddenly in this peaceful kingdom called Monaco, a murder was committed, and this was tried in the court of justice. And the court of justice sentenced that criminal as per the law directed. That was, that person's head has to be cut off. But there was an obstacle in executing the criminal because the kingdom of Monaco never faced such a problem previously. So they were not well prepared to cope up with this problem. First of all, they did not have a guillotine machine as well as an executioner to execute the criminal. So the ministers discussed about this matter. This was the obstacle. They did not have the machine to cut off the man's head off as their law directs for the murder. And secondly, there was no executioner, a person who executes. So they sent a letter of inquiry to their neighboring country, that is French government. Within a week they got a reply, and the French government said that a machine and an expert could be supplied and it would cost them 16,000 francs. So the ministers brought this information to the king. And the king was angry, and he was also surprised and shocked. They cannot spend 16,000 francs on a criminal. So the king asked the ministers to come out with the alternative option. So this time they sent a similar kind of inquiry to the king of Italy, and he was like a brother monarch to the king, and he was not Republican. And a reply was received by the ministers after a few days. And the king of Italy has said that they can supply a machine and an expert, including the traveling expense. It would be only 12,000 francs, 4,000 francs less than what the French government had quoted. But the king thought that even then it will be more than 2 francs per head, because they hardly have 7,000 people. If they send more than 14,000 francs, that means they have to ask each and every individual to give more than 2 francs, and they thought it will create a riot. So the king of Italy, right, asked these ministers to find alternative way to deal with this criminal. So once again, right, they discussed about this matter again and again. And finally, right, they came out with the option to ask with the general, head of the army, whether, right, it was possible with the army to find out a soldier who could do this execution in a rough and homely manner. And the general called all his right soldiers and he discussed about this matter, but nobody was ready to execute the criminal. They said that this is not a thing they were not being taught. Even though they kill enemies in the right war, this is not a thing they have been taught. So once again the king was in a dilemma. He called his ministers, council of ministers. They considered the matter again and again. So many options were given and they finally decided that the best way is to write alter means change death sentence into imprisonment for life. That is putting the person in prison till his death. But even then there was a hitch. Even though the king agreed for this particular right alternative option, there was a hitch, there was a hurdle. They did not have a suitable prison meant for such a purpose, because this is the first time they are right witnessing such a problem. And there was a small lockup wherein, right, people who did some petty crimes, they are put in that lockup. And it was not suitable, right, for them to keep a criminal till his death. So once again they decided, considered, and eventually they found out a particular prison wherein they can put this criminal till his death. So a guard was appointed to look after this criminal, and he was also asked to fetch food for the criminal from the palace kitchen. So everything went on smoothly for almost a year. And the king, as usual, when he was going through the balance sheet of that particular year, he came across a new source of expenditure. Expenditure means the amount which is spent. And it was not a right small amount. It was more than 600 francs. Right? You have to keep this in mind. It was more than 600 francs. And that was for the keep of the criminal, for the maintenance of the criminal. The king thought, right, it's not a small amount, it's a huge amount. So he called his ministers to find alternative source to get rid of this problem. Because the right criminal was very young and healthy, he might live for another 50 years. The king thought it's not a right small thing, it is a right serious problem which they have to deal with at the earliest. So the ministers once again assembled, they came out with different option and they thought that the best option is to remove the guard and wait for the criminal to run away. So this is what we learned in the previous class. Now let us continue further. We shall have to tell him straight out, said they. That means the ministers said. Now what they have done is they have already removed the guard and waiting patiently for this criminal to run away, escape from the prison. They thought there is no other alternative way to deal with this criminal. So they are patiently waiting, but there is no trace of this criminal leaving the prison. At dinner time, he waited for the guard to come, but there was no guard because the guard was already dismissed. And on his own, he straight away went to the palace kitchen. And when he found that there was no guard, he brought his own food, ate the food, and went into the prison and locked the door. And that is what he went on repeating. He never tried even once to escape. So this matter was getting worse, out of hand. So this is what the ministers were discussing. We shall have to tell him straight out, said they, that we do not want to keep him. Straight away we'll tell on his face, we don't want you to be here. It's better you leave this place. So the minister of justice had him brought before him. So the criminal was brought before the minister of justice. That's just like law minister in our country. And this is what the minister asked the criminal. Why do you not run away? Why don't you leave this place? Said the minister, there is no guard to keep you. You can go where you like and the prince will not mind. You can leave this place, you can go wherever you want, and the prince of Monaco will never ask you any question. I dare say the prince would not mind, replied the man. Immediately the criminal replied. He said, I know that the prince will not ask any question when I leave the prison. I know that. Replied the man, but I have nowhere to go. Now the problem faced by the criminal was, for the past 1 year he is in the prison, and now he doesn't have any place to go. Any place to go. What can I do? He says, I'm in a helpless condition. What can I do? I don't have any place to go. You have ruined my character by your sentence. You have spoiled my character. You have spoiled my name. By sentencing me to death, you have spoiled my image. So nobody will give me shelter or food, or nobody will give me any job. And people will turn their backs on me, and that means nobody will try to help me. People will try to turn their backs on me. Nobody will try to help me, because you have spoiled my character, spoiled my name, spoiled my image. Besides, means apart from that, I have got out of the way of working, and even I have become very lazy. For the past 1 year, I am not doing any work. So even I have become very lazy. I don't have any interest right now to work. You have treated me badly. You have treated me in a bad way with this sentence. It is not fair. It is not fair. In the first place, once you have sentenced me to death, you ought to have executed me. In the first place, after you had decided to execute me, you should have executed me. You should have killed me by cutting off my head. But you did not follow it. You pronounced a judgment and you never followed your verdict. But you did not do it. That is one thing. I did not complain about it. On the first occasion, you sentenced me to death, but you did not follow it and never complained. Then you sentenced me to imprisonment for life. Then you altered the decision from death sentence. You altered the decision to imprisonment for life. Even then, I did not utter a single word against you. And then you sentenced me to imprisonment for life and put a guard to bring me my food. But after a time, you took him away and I had to fetch my own food. And after a while, you removed the guard and you forced me to fetch my food on my own. Even then, I kept quiet. I did not utter a single word. Again, I did not complain. But now, you actually want me to go away. I can't agree to that. And now you are expecting me to leave this place. And don't expect me to run away from this place. I'm not going to leave this place. You cannot act as per your wishes. But now you actually want me to go away. I can't agree to that. You may do as you like, but I won't go away. You may do as you like. Now once again the king was in a dilemma. When the criminal said he is not ready to leave the prison, once again the matter was brought into the notice of the king, and the king was in utter dilemma. He did not know what to do. Dilemma means in utter confusion. So once again the ministers were brought into the picture, and they wanted to consider this matter again and again, even till they come out with an eventual solution. What was to be done? Everyone was in a fix. Once more the council was summoned. Summoned means called. Council consists of group of ministers. What course could they adopt? Means what measures could they take to end this problem? The man would not go. The problem was the man was not ready to leave. The criminal was not ready to leave. They reflected and considered. They considered this matter. Different ministers came out with different opinion or options. They considered, they went on taking the suggestion of each and every individual, whether how to deal with this criminal. The only way to get rid of him was to offer him a pension. Finally, the minister decided that the one and only solution to end this problem, to get rid of this problem, is to offer the criminal pension. And so they reported to the prince. They told the king, apart from offering him a pension, there is no other way to end this problem. So the ministers said about their findings to the king. There is nothing else for it, said they. They refers to the ministers. They said to the king, we must get rid of him somehow. Somehow we have to get rid of this person, get rid of this problem, overcome from this problem. The sum fixed was 600 francs. One of the important things which you have to keep in your mind is the maintenance of the criminal for one entire year was more than 600 francs. More than 600, and now they want to limit it to just 600 francs. Initially, 1 year's maintenance went on for almost more than 600 francs. So now they fix an annual pension which is given once in a year for 600 francs. And this was announced to the prisoner. The prisoner or the criminal was called, and they said that you leave this place. You said that, right, you are not able to lead a normal life because nobody is going to give you a job and nobody will provide you shelter. So for your maintenance, as an annual pension, we'll be providing you each and every year with 600 francs. Well, said he. Finally, the criminal was ready to accept the offer. But before accepting the offer, he had a condition. On that particular condition, he was ready to leave the prison. He said, I don't mind so long as you undertake to pay it regularly. Undertake means you give in writing. Until and unless you promise that you will regularly pay me an annual pension of 600 francs, I don't have any problem. I'm ready for this deal. I'm ready for this deal. Until and unless you promise me, you give undertaking in a written format that you'll promise that every year without fail you'll give me annual pension of 600 francs. If you are ready with that, if you are fine with that, then I'm ready to leave. So the matter was finally settled. A deal was struck. The king agreed to pay annual pension of 600 francs each and every year. And the prisoner also decided or agreed to leave the prison. He received 1/3 of his annuity in advance. Out of the 600 francs, 1/3 means almost 200 francs. Out of the 600 annual pension, 200 francs he got well in advance. And then he left the king's dominion, king's territory, he left the place. It was only a quarter of an hour by rail. Quarter means 15 minutes. So he went to a new place and settled. And this new place was just 15 minutes train ride travel. A distance of just 15 minutes ride when you travel in a train. And he emigrated. He went and settled in a new place. And settled just across the frontier borders of Monaco, where he bought a bit of land, a small piece of land. He bought a small piece of land. Started market gardening. It's like, right, running a nursery, right? Flowers or plant nursery. And now he lives comfortably without any problem. He always goes at the proper time to draw his pension. At the correct time, he goes to the Kingdom of Monaco to draw his annual pension. Having received it, after getting the pension, he goes to the gaming table. He goes to the gambling house. Stakes 2 or 3 francs. Stakes means to risk. On each and every occasion, he risks, right, almost 2 or 3 francs. If it was his day, he would win. Or if it wasn't his day, right, he would also lose. So he would risk the, right, 2 or 3 francs. Sometimes he wins and sometimes he loses. And then he returns home and lives peaceably and well. After that, he returns home and lives in a peaceful way. Now, Leo Tolstoy makes an observation based on this particular story. He says, it is a good thing that he did not commit his crime in a country where they do not grudge expense. Grudge means where they do not bother about spending. He was lucky that, what Tolstoy says, that he was lucky that he lived in such a country where the government thinked twice before, right, spending any right amount on the criminal. It is good that he did not commit his crime in a country where they did not grudge, they did not bother to spend, to cut a man's head off or to keep him in prison for life. Apart from Monaco, if he was in any other country, either they would have made him, right, be in the prison till he dies, or they would have executed him. And he says he is lucky that he lived in a country called Monaco. He got out of both the punishment. And through this lesson, Leo Tolstoy satirizes the modern day governance of a kingdom. have a right king who did not have a right mentality of taking a decision on his own. On each and every occasion, he kept on depending on his ministers, and whatever findings they came out with or whatever suggestion they gave, he blindly accepted, and that resulted in eventually giving a pension. Such a thing would have never happened in any other part of the world. Giving a annual pension to a criminal who has committed murder. With this we are winding up this lesson. Thank you.